Hey, good Tuesday morning, and thanks for logging on here to BAMWX.com or the weather portal for today's long-range forecast update or wherever you may be watching this video. We've got a lot to discuss today, including big snows that went through the Central Plains, possibly another system coming in here to the weekend, and then we've got some interesting changes or trends here in some of our tropical forcing forecasts, or what we call the MJO, the Madden-Julian oscillation, that is essentially at least opening up the door for some potential legitimate colder pattern risks here going forward. And I think if there's been any time where we've wanted to actually listen to the colder model runs, maybe it's now versus, say, the last few weeks where everybody's been talking about how cold it's going to get, but it hasn't gotten there. So let's look at why we may want to start listening now versus where we've been. So first off, intro slide here, days 3 to 7 impactful weather outlook does show another system that will move into the area here this weekend, possibly bringing more snow and perhaps more rain as well. Big snow totals though here in Iowa and eastern Nebraska. Many locations here, double-digit snowfall totals have been observed. And I tell you, a heck of a storm still ongoing. It's starting to exit the area though, across portions of northern Illinois and then getting into Michigan. But like I've said, we looked here at our temperature departure from normal. This is month to date, okay? And when you look at who's actually been below normal, it's kind of tough to point out an area that's really been considerably below for the entire month. But if there has been a spot, it's really probably southern and southwestern Texas and down through portions of the eastern desert Southwest, if you will. But guys, I mean, for the most part, about 70 to 75% of the country has been above normal, especially Midwest, Ohio Valley, Northeast, New England area, running 3 to as much as 6 degrees above the average to start out January, the first 25 days. When we look at our precipitation, our percentages of normal, we've seen a very active storm track in the central U.S. from the deep south into the central plains. And we've been drier with respect to normal. We've been 50 to 70% of the normal, in some cases 25% of the normal, from Illinois through the Tennessee Valley into the mid-Atlantic, and a little bit wetter here off into the northeastern portions of the country. So this is a look here at just the European over the course of basically day 2 and all the way out here through the end of its run. You're going to watch the weekend system come in. See that low coming in Saturday into Sunday, perhaps leading to more snow in the northeast. And then you can see at the end of the run, it actually does show another bigger system here by day 9 or 10. I think that day 9 or 10 signal is probably legit. I think there could be a very big storm here the first week of February for folks in the central portion of the country. Rain or snow, we don't know yet, but if we look at things just in terms of precipitation from normal the next 10 days, when we look at a blend of weather models, the core of things certainly focused here right across the central U.S., where spots over the next 10 days could run 300 to 400% of the normal precipitation over the next 10 days. So that's welcomed news because we just touched on how dry it's been. Also here in California, where snow totals and some of the higher elevations could reach, measuring in 3, 4, 5 feet. So incredible snow totals are going to be coming out there in California from this. Now, if we look at this from snowfall the next 10 days, again, another system's dialed up, which we talked about in the beginning of the video here. Our European and our UK Met models are pretty aggressive with snow. Our Canadian, our GFS models are a little less aggressive. But regardless, it's a busy pattern, and there is a little bit of cold air there to tap into. So I do think we need to watch for another additional system for accumulating snows, not only here in the Central Plains and the Ohio Valley, but possibly into the Northeast, the interior Northeast, here over the next 10 days or so. There's your total liquid 10-day rainfall numbers. Again, pretty busy pattern, and probably going to be more chances at severe weather here across the deep south as well going forward. So week 1, the core of the above normal precipitation centered here in Iowa, northern Missouri, where you could see 200% of the normal, but again, the Midwest there remaining active. It's the opposite of 2020, where last year we were running 2 to 10% of the normal in the same location. All right, but week 2, we continue to see that active pattern, 2 to 300% of the normal. Again, a little bit different than 2020, as a lot of that activity was down into the south and east. This year, it's kind of pushed off to the north and west a little bit, which again is why I think there could be some bigger winter storm potential. All right, getting into the first week of February. Looking at temperatures, we're still a little bit warmer than the data here in week 2. The EPS remains much cooler overall than the American data. The GFS, the GEFS, and the North American Ensemble Forecast System, they line up closer to our thoughts with warmth ahead of the storm and the positive SOI, and the MJO 6 and 7, and the warmth in East Asia. I do think there is a risk here that, pending how quickly we get into Phase 8 of the MJO, that things could trend colder, and I'm going to talk about that in just a second. But for now, in week 2, we still favor above normal temperatures in the eastern U.S., 1 to 3 to 3 to 5 degrees above that average. All right, so this is kind of what I wanted to show you. Here's the GEFS, and I just want to simplify this for you. I'm going to go to the 5-day 850 temperature anomalies. Here's the 10 to 15 day. I show you this because next I want to show you, here's the 850 temperature anomalies. Here's the last 5 years of February's 500 millibar heights and the last 5 years of just February temperatures. If we take all 5 years, we combine them together, this is what's happened the last 5 years with recent climatology. It's just been warm in the eastern U.S. When I look at the GEFS, I see a lot of the last 5 years in its 10 to 15 day forecast. Okay, I can even do this total here, week 2, if you will, from the GEFS. And then I go and I look at the EPS. It's a little bit of a different story, but it's still not incredibly cold. This is the 850 temperatures, the 850 millibar temperatures. If I go and look at this, let's just say from a temperature, surface temperature from normal standpoint, here is your EPS in the 10 to 15. It's still warm in the east, all right? The GEFS is just a little bit warmer than the EPS, in fact, quite a bit here. But you can see it's loading in the cold up off to the north and to the west. Now, I still think, even with this look, I don't disagree with this look, by the way, I still think there can be big snows in this area here. I'm trying to be cautious with this. I'm not saying a coastal snow is completely out of the question, but I'm saying with this gradient and the way this pattern is, the pattern is going to be very busy in here. And with the fact that we have Arctic air seeping in from Canada, from the Canadian prairies, you're going to have cold air to tap into. So there's going to be snow. There's going to be winter weather and winter storms dialed up. It's just a matter of how far east and south can that snow make it. So, when you look at the Canadian at the same time, you can kind of see it's trying to really seep that cold air in. And really, I think these models are all different, all differentiating, if you will, based on the MJO pulse and where it takes it. Again, I look at the last 5 years, I have a hard time just going all out cold. Okay, I'm just looking. This is very simple. This is a 20-foot view, last 5 years. That's all it says. I understand we have a negative NAO. I understand that's going to do some work on the southeast ridge. I'm not going to ignore that, and you're going to see that in the week 3 and 4 outlook. All right, but it's all going to be dependent on this MJO forecast. You can see here just watching this that it is advancing. It is moving across the maritime continent, closer to 150 and closer even now to the date line. So it is on the move. The MJO is progressing, and we're even watching its descending air, if you will, the sinking air over the Indian Ocean right now as well. So we see that it is moving. We look at our computer models, just the RMMs. I believe they're starting to get a clue. The Europeans trying to get us into Phase 8 by day 15. The GFS is going to be a little bit slower, a little higher amplitude. It's trying to get us into Phase 7. Some of its ensemble members are quicker. Regardless, the models are seeing us move this along here. All right, the CFS trying to get us into Phase 8 here by day 15 as well, by February 8th. So if we progress 7, 8, and 1 of the MJO, we need to look at years where we've had a La Nina, okay, and we need to look at years where we've had similar patterns. We come up with our own analogs for these. So here's MJO Phase 7. And if you go back and you see, I made some tweets yesterday comparing the GEFS and the EPS, and the GEFS looks a lot like Phase 7 right now. It really, really does. And that's why I think that this is going to be the look here probably, for especially into week 2. And if there's going to be colder risks, it may not come until we're actually truly getting into Phase 8, which may not be until the 16 to 20-day time frame. It's hard to know the timing. It's very difficult to know. Is it going to be the 16 to 20 or the 21 to 25 day There's just no way to know. All right, but we know there's a pulse developing, and it is trying to move, and it could present colder risks to the forecast. Here's February MJO phase 8 during a La Nina. It's cold. Brings in a good shot of Arctic air. The southeast ridge relaxes a little bit, and we have a period where we could get very cold. All right, here's MJO phase 1. We kind of go back to this southern southeastern ridge, colder in the north and east, still colder across the top. Des Moines out through the Pacific Northwest, coldest air bottled up in the PNW. That's what it normally does in La Ninas. Now, I wanted to show you this before I completely finish. There's 2 instances where we had similar MJO behavior. All right, this is February of 2018, and we're looking at the 16 to 30-day time frame, which is the 9th through the 22nd of February. And then we have 2006. Both of these years did something very similar we look to do this year. All right? And you can see that the outcomes here. 2018 flat out just torched it. There is some blocking. There is some potential help from the stratosphere, which I don't even have time to get into that today. The day 10 plots from the European model are suggesting there could be some favorable changes coming in the stratosphere. It's day 10. But it's kind of a coin toss here. You kind of have to just go with what you know, go with your research, go with your gut, if you will, when you draw up a 16 to 30-day outlook, that's what we've done. All right, we've looked at everything. The risk here is if we get the cooler air to come further east related to MJO phase 8, it could present, I think, turning colder faster is what I'm trying to say. I think that if we get into MJO phase 8 quicker, the cold could come quicker, if you will. All right. So this is difficult. When you look at the period overall, the heart of February, I think that for a week or so, that a lot of us could be below normal temperatures as phase 8, as that cold air injects into the central and eastern U.S. Perhaps it's the result of a negative EPO. Perhaps we get negative. Whenever you get cold from a negative EPO, it takes time. It bleeds kind of east. It starts in the Pacific Northwest and it kind of bleeds east. Maybe that happens for a week right in the middle of this week 3 and 4 outlook. But you get back, if you're in MJO phase 7 and you're in MJO phase 1, that presents a warmer south and east ridge solution, which is why I think overall that could win out. But I do think a period of wintry weather is coming. The Northeast can be colder than average, and so can the Midwest and definitely the Pacific Northwest. With the above normal precipitation in mind, you're probably going to be dealing with a couple bigger winter storms like I discussed in the beginning of the video. All right? It's just very important to remember that phase 7 looks like this. All right? And we're in phase 7 of the MJO, and we're going to be there for the next 15 days. And so when you see the modeling look the way that it does, and you compare it to the research, the analogs I just showed you, you have to consider this, because this is what it looks like. There's the model. There's phase 7. It can get cold, perhaps 16 to 20-day period, but then again, it could turn back warmer. So that's the week 3 and 4 outlook. I mean, at the end of the day, we have to make a forecast. We have to make an outlook. We have to put our money. We have to put it out there, right? We got to put it on the line. We can't just talk about what may happen. We have to actually say something, which is the difference between us and a lot of folks out there. So that's all I have for today. A lot of information here. A lot of this hinges on the MJO, the tropical forcing. How does it go into the maritime continent? Does it go 7, 8, and 1? Does it stall in 7? It's tough to know, and we need to watch the stratosphere. All right, if we can get some of the stratosphere, some of the PV over the Hudson Bay as we go into 8 and 1 of the MJO, it can get pretty cold for a time. So we'll keep an eye on these things, but if there's a time to watch some of the colder suggestions from the models, I believe the time is now, and we'll keep you posted. Have a great day.